So today I'm going to show you InThrMa EMS. EMS stands for Energy Management System, in conjunction with Church Community Builder, which is a great combo for churches of any size. The way that I kind of position it to churches is you're already doing one chore, which is managing and maintaining an events calendar. Mm-hmm. And the second chore that nobody does, everyone has good intentions, but nobody does, is managing your heating and cooling schedules. And for a church, that's actually a rather challenging thing to do, just because traditional thermostats are not really suited for blocks of time here and there. So, 2 hours here, 4 hours there, an evening here, morning there. The way I describe it is a church schedule looks kind of like Swiss cheese in terms of when and where and how often and how long. So it's that's kind of the analogy. So this system will basically take your CCB events and then automatically schedule heating and cooling based on those events. The default schedule will be unoccupied, so your default is saving energy, and then only when there's events will we heat and cool the spaces. And of course, prior to those events, we'll preheat and pre-cool the space appropriately. And then the system has a lot of other sort of little features, specifically in this integration for example, hallways and bathrooms. So, let's say you have an event in this building or in this wing, what have you, the system, we will customize it with you to say, okay, when there's an event over here, we're going to need this system, which, air conditions the hallways and bathrooms for that wing, so on and so forth. So those kinds of details, we'll fine tune with you for each church. So, once it's up and running, it really is on autopilot as far as the scheduling and managing things. Now, of course, the system has more than just that functionality. It's going to show you, it's going to give you dashboards. You can set up alerts when things are running too hot or too cold or too long or too short. Inefficiently, it's going to have graphs and then all sorts of reports. So, the facilities team will have a lot more insight into what's actually going on if they have the time and inclination to deal with those things. So it's really, in addition to kind of doing the scheduling, it's really kind of a 360-degree sort of view of the heating and cooling systems, as well as a little bit of the facilities in terms of, which spaces are efficient, which spaces are not, which systems are efficient, which systems aren't. So what I'm going to show you today is a church in New Jersey. They're, of course, a CCB church. This is Fellowship Alliance Chapel. And they have, I want to say 30 or so thermostats in the system. So it's a mid-sized church. And what I want to show first is kind of the CCB integration. So that's all done here kind of under the schedules icon. So let's go ahead and click into here. And of course, there is a setup process. So we'll work with you on the setup. The setup is a one-time process, and you'll connect it. You'll pick CCB. It has the flexibility to start heating and cooling and end heating and cooling based on either the setup or event times. So you have that flexibility. One of the key things that we need to do up front is do the space mapping. So basically, all the spaces that show up in CCB. So for example, for this church, here's all their spaces.
When you say spaces, are you referring to like rooms?
Correct. Yeah. So
locations. Okay.
Yeah. So you won't have projectors or school buses or anything like that. This will just be the list of their rooms that when they set up events in CCB, this is the list that they would choose from. So what we want to do is, this is sort of this part of the setup. We want to map all these spaces to actual thermostats in the church. So you'll see, in this case, they have 43 spaces mapped to thermostats, and some spaces can have one thermostat. A gymnasium or a sanctuary might have, multiple thermostats, or one thermostat might service, a whole wing of different classrooms and, in the church. So we do all that mapping, and that's what this represents. So that way, when we see an event come in through CCB, we know which thermostat or thermostats we need to schedule accordingly in the system. Okay, so that's the mapping. That's sort of a one-time thing. We also, sort of you define default temperatures. So air conditioning is 72.
Hold on just a minute, because Bobby, Joe, and Laird can't hear anything. So let me tell them, click on the phone and then select, I think it said computer audio. Okay, let me tell Laird. So they're so used to Zoom where we click on and everything's right there.
Oh, okay. We can switch to Zoom if you'd like.
Yeah, we might have to go to, I'll just say try that. If not, try that. And if it doesn't work, let's see. Bobby Joe got on. Okay, she's typing, so let's see what she says here. Is it going to mute me? Yes. Well, I don't know. Does it?
I can mute her from here, so that's fine.
I'll say he can.
They should have their own mute button, but I can mute her. Yep, I can mute her if you like. Yep, I just muted Bobby.
Okay, let me just ask. Can you hear us? See what
Testing.
Okay, good. Laird can hear. Laird is another one that I wanted. So Claudia's on as well. Claudia, can you just let us know, flow me in, let me know if you can hear. So Claudia, Laird, and Bobby. Yeah. Awesome. Great. And Laird.
I can hear, Pam. Not a problem.
This is Sam. Can you hear?
Sam?
Hello?
Can you hear Sam? Perfect.
Yes.
Sam, let me stop just for a minute to tell you about the three that are on. I told you about Bobby Joe and what she does with coaching. I already explained all that to you. So that's Bobby Joe. And then we have Laird that joined us, and he's the one I told you is over marketing and has a desire to really promote our preferred service provider. So I'm so glad he could be with us. You guys, this call, by the way, is only going to be about 10 or 15 minutes, so it'll be great for you to get a great overview. And then Claudia, she helps all of our churches, especially our new churches, with onboarding to make sure that they have a great experience. They know about the resources and services that we provide. So again, she's going to be another great voice for your company as well. Yeah, and I don't know if it's just on my side, but the wording on my screen is really small, so I didn't know if you could enlarge your screen for us.
Oh, yeah, let me try doing that. I have guilty of having a very large screen, so is that better?
Yeah, just because I want to be able to see the details of the events and things like that. That's perfect.
Is that okay? Good. So maybe what I should do, because we're recording this, let me just start over if that's okay.
That'd be great. Sure.
So let me just cancel. And everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so let me do. Okay, so. Okay, so sorry, let me get my bearings here. So InThrMa EMS is a energy management system that all sorts of facilities use, including churches, of course. It's primarily focused on heating and cooling systems. It can also do lighting, signage, parking lot lights, televisions, in terms of controlling those circuits on and off on a schedule, arbitrarily, what have you. Today, what I'm going to show you is the integration of InThrMa EMS with CCB, Church Community Builder, and we'll look through that, and I'll show you how it all works. It's basically a way for churches to put their heating and cooling scheduling on autopilot. The way I describe it to churches is they're already doing one chore, which is maintaining an events calendar. And the second chore that everybody knows about in the back of their mind, they know they need to do, but they feel guilty because they don't get around to it, is managing heating and cooling. And for a church, their schedule typically looks like Swiss cheese, as I describe it. You know, it's pockets of events here and there, an afternoon here, an evening there, 2 hours here, a morning there, and so forth. So a traditional thermostat or traditional thermostat scheduling doesn't really, work in a church environment. It's either going to be, uncomfortable or very wasteful of resources. So, putting these two technologies together is a great way to adhere to that schedule, save energy, save equipment wear and tear, save personnel resources from having to deal with stuff or come in at, at all hours to deal with stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Before I do that, the system also is a general purpose sort of HVAC scheduling system. So it's going to have alerts when things don't look right. It has graphs. It has reports, all sorts of tools for the facilities team to sort of use and work with. Today for our session, I'm just going to focus kind of on the integration of CCB and InThrMa. So let's go ahead and click on the calendar icon here. The very first, as part of the setup, what we have to do is we have to map all the spaces. So these are all the, bookable spaces that are found in CCB, and we have to map those to thermostats. So when we click on this link here, and this, just FYI, this is an actual church. It's a church in New Jersey. They have about 35 or so thermostats throughout their church buildings. It's a pretty large campus, so it's a campus of several buildings. And this mapping, if we scroll to the bottom, you're going to see here this list of spaces. And these are all the spaces that they can use in CCB for events. And we're not going to change anything here, of course, but this is where you would map those spaces to thermostats. So on the left here, this left column is all their thermostats. This next column to the right is all their spaces. And we're going to map them all. So if a gymnasium has 4 thermostats, we'll map that accordingly. If one thermostat controls 6 classrooms that are in the system, we'll map that accordingly too. So it's one to many or many to many, whatever the actual mapping is. So that's done one time. As part of the master setup, we're going to define kind of cooling and heating set points that are across the board. But if you wanted to, let's say a specific room runs a little cooler, a little hotter, and you want custom set points for each room. In this case, this church has gone ahead and put in custom heat and cool set points for all these different rooms. So you don't have to. You can, of course, and this is where that would be done. But they've done their mapping. They have 43 rooms and spaces that are mapped to their thermostats. And then over here, this is what I was telling you about as far as the cool and heat set points. If we wanted to change this to 73, or just type 73, hit return, that's the new default cool set point for any event that has air conditioning. We, of course, will pre-cool and preheat the space prior to the event. And when you're setting it up, over here, the church can specify if they want the setup start or if they want the actual event start as the starting time for the event. That way, if you want to air condition it ahead of time for the facilities team or whoever is doing the setup, and then also vice versa at the end of the event. You can pick event end or tear down end, depending on what you want. And then we have some, this is a feature called Events End Saver. So, you can put in, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes. This will shut things down 15 minutes prior to the end of an event. So, if you look over the course of a month or a summer or a winter, all those 15 minutes over time will, add up to, of course, less equipment wear and tear, less energy consumption, and hopefully more savings. And then, I'm not going to go through all of these, but basically, the way the system works is our system looks at their API, and calendar once an hour, every hour, and it's going to look for new events, updated events, or deleted events, and then handle those accordingly. So this is the setup. And here it just tells you the last time it ran, the next time it's going to run. Last time it ran, it found 196 calendar events, and gives you stats on the runs. If there's issues, they'll get logged here. For example, ward counseling, it didn't have any mapped spaces. So it was an event in the calendar, but there was no spaces associated with it, so there was nothing that, for us to do with it. This is what it looks like once it's running. So for example, this big green block is all their events occurring today. So we have an event called, or they have an event called Planet 678, and you can see here it's in the A wing wall, the B wing wall, the back wall, and the 2 balconies. So then we have, this event, these events. You'll see these prefixes here merged and PT. I mentioned, or sorry, I forgot to mention what PT is. So we have, as part of the setup process, obviously every church is going to be unique. We'll work with the church to define bathrooms and hallways and common spaces that also need to be air conditioned. Let's say when there's, so let's say for Planet 678, there's going to be a doorway, an entryway, bathrooms that aren't going to be in CCB, but of course they may want to, have those air conditioned appropriately or heated appropriately. So we'll work to customize those, and that's what the PT means. PT stands for pass-through. So it's a pass-through space where people may pass through it or use it like a bathroom, for example. So we'll do that. And one of the things that we do with every church is we have them put together a floor plan so that, as we're customizing it, we know, and we're sort of talking about, a common language in terms of, it's not zooming out, but, here's a floor plan. These stars here, I guess, are their thermostats, just so that we can kind of work on, okay, here's men's and women's bathrooms. We know that if there's an event here, we also want the appropriate thermostats and so forth. So, it's very important that they have a floor plan so that we can kind of, customize the system for them as needed. So really, once it's up and running, this is what they're going to see. This green block is today. This next block here is, starting tomorrow, so 8:15. So the first event tomorrow is at 3 p.m. They have only 3 events tomorrow. The next day they have 5 or 6 events and so on. So this is what it looks like. So going forward, they have 3,820 sort of upcoming events that are in the system. So this is a pretty active church, if you couldn't tell. And that's really sort of the gist of it. Once it's running, once it's fine-tuned, it's really just an autopilot. And it'll tell you here, the heating and cooling set points. These are their prefs. Let's say they wanted to modify something, they could come in here, hit 67, hit enter. There it is. It's saved. As long as it's a future event, that's fine. Of course, there's something coming up. But that's really all there is to it. We have a dashboard here that they can look at that shows all the different set points. So the blue line is the set point for each thermostat, and you can see most of them are in the unoccupied range, 78 degrees, and so forth. And then the green line is the actual room temperature at those individual thermostats. So you'll see sort of in the top left over here, as they move through it, those are the different temperatures for the spaces and the set points. So that's an example of the dashboard. We have a couple different dashboards. The alerts, they can set up alerts, to all the different facilities people. They only have one alert set up, which, I sort of encourage churches or encourage users to set up more, but, inefficient run, long run time, low and high temperatures, humidity alerts, program deviation. There's all sorts of alerts that, they can set up to kind of monitor systems. We also have reports. So, for example, there's a report called, where is it? Performance report. So what this is going to show them, this is an interesting report. This is going to show them 2 graphs. On the left side is the heating, performance. The right side is the cooling performance. But it's going to show them all their units. So from left to right, left is the most efficient unit. So, B10, B11, whatever that is, that's the most efficient air conditioner, all the way down to here, the barn, which is the least efficient air conditioner. So, as a facilities team, if they're looking to invest in new systems or, preventative maintenance or upgrades, they would focus their efforts kind of at this end of the graph to try to bring these systems up in terms of performance. And this is the same graph here, but for heating. So, the system is collecting data 24/7. So if they wanted, to go look at a graph, they could look in here, and they can see, exactly the set points, the temperatures, the humidity, when things came on, when things turned off. Let's see if there's. So for example, this is yesterday. I just went to yesterday, and if we click and drag here, we can see. Actually, let me refresh this. If we click and drag here to zoom in, you can see this gray line right here where my mouse is the room temperature. You can see the set point, went down. The dark blue line indicates the air conditioning came on, it shut off, came on, off, on, off. So they can see, all how the system is operating, either visually or through reports, to better understand what's going on. So when they get a complaint that, it's too hot here, it's too cold there, they can come into the system, look at the graphs, go back in time, and really try to understand what's going on. I guess the only other sort of details with CCB is, of course, it's a church. Worship is typically not put in CCB, worship schedules. So what we have here is, there's sort of two caveats to this: the worship schedule and the office schedule. So the system, there's a line here called Sunday Skip Prior. So basically, we will skip any events in the calendar prior to 12:15 in the afternoon on Sunday, and those will be hard-coded in the thermostat. So obviously, their worship schedule will be in the thermostat schedule just because it's a recurring every single week kind of schedule. And then if there's events on Sunday afternoons in the schedule, those will get picked up if they're after 12:15. And then the other sort of detail with this is office hours. So if they have, one or two or whatever thermostats for their offices, Monday through Thursday, those will be hard-coded in the thermostat, so that schedule obviously doesn't have to be part of CCB, and it just, occurs every Monday through Thursday, whatever their office schedule is. So that's what, sort of the two exceptions to CCB events that might be in there. So that's kind of sort of a pretty quick overview, focusing primarily on the CCB integration. And yeah, I mean, if there's questions, I'd love to kind of chat with you guys about questions or things like that.
Thank you. This was really, really helpful. I know Bobby Joe has a question. I have one question. Do you have an app on so that people can download that on their phone so that they can make adjustments, or is once this is set, you have to then log in and somebody is in charge of changing that? Is the whole purpose to make sure that people don't raise and lower the heating and air conditioning?
Well, as far as purpose, so that's a good question. So we have a few different thermostat models that we work with. Some of them allow you to lock the screen, and when the screen is locked, you can also dictate how many degrees plus or minus somebody, if somebody just walked up to the thermostat, what they could do. So you could, say 0 degrees, they have no control, or you can give them, plus or minus 2 degrees, whatever. So back to the original question, we do have an iPhone app. The iPhone app is going to give you kind of just the at-a-glance view, as well as modifying. So let's say, this room over here, you get a call, hey, B-wing wall, whatever, is too cold. So, from the iPhone app, you could just tap the screen a couple of times and change the set point for that event from the phone. It's not a comprehensive app. It doesn't give you, all the bells and whistles. But, for a remote user, a church facilities person, they could quickly, log in there and make adjustments as needed. So.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And it's also pretty well suited for a tablet or an iPad, using this web interface. So, if they don't have an iPhone, but they have a tablet with them or a laptop, they can get on and obviously access the whole system as well.
Yeah, so Bobby Jo, I'm not sure she can type in, but she just on Flow said, let's see here. Why is it helpful to have that Sunday schedule? She said maybe she missed it because she couldn't hear really well.
Oh, okay. So, I guess the main consistent part of a church schedule is the Sunday worship. So, we just, so let's say there's a network issue or a technology issue. The last time you want to have heating and cooling issues in a church is on Sunday morning. So
Yeah.
let's say the internet's down or the network in the church is down or what have you. So we hard code the Sunday schedule in the thermostat, because every thermostat, of course, has a schedule. So we hard code that in the thermostats for Sunday. That way, even if the network, like I said, the network is down here, there, anywhere, that will still occur, and we're guaranteed that as long as there's electricity in the church, there'll be a comfortable temperature with the heating and cooling system. So anything sort of, and they pick the time here as far as what time, but anything prior to this time here is hard coded in the thermostat. Anything after it would come from CCB. So.
Okay.
And that's a preference, so they can turn that off. So I have a couple of churches that insist on doing it sort of their way.
Yeah.
But most churches will just pick a time that sort of their Sunday services end, and then that prior to that is hard coded. After that comes from CCB. So that's
Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Oh, you know what? It says I have some questions, so let me pull up.
Oh, yeah, I see it up here. Yep.
So, yeah, Bobby was asking about Sunday skip prior.
She's so cute. Me.
Okay, Bobby, yeah, so I see you had a question. Do I need to set a temperature for every event that's coming from CCB? No, definitely not. So right here, event preferences, you'll set your cool and heat, and those are your defaults. You can change them at any time. And then if you wanted to say, okay, we know that this space is always a little cool or this space is always a little warm, you can then further customize the defaults on this screen where you do the mapping. So, they know that, for example, their main auditorium, their A wing, they wanted it 66, the back wall they wanted 67, the B wing they wanted 66. So you can definitely customize it that way as well. But these are sort of, you define it, and then when we're setting up events, automatically we take those temperatures into account. Yeah, so that's what that is. And then, just in case I missed it, the system will preheat and pre-cool prior to the event. So every time the heating and cooling runs, we're observing the temperature, how quickly it's heating, how quickly it's cooling, and we use that over time. We learn over time, when to start heating or cooling to get to that desired temperature for the start of the event.
Great.
Yeah, so for example, Bobby, you mentioned youth. Yeah, we have, we can definitely customize it. So for example, we talked about customizing the pass-through spaces. Some churches will have, basketball or Zumba or events like that, and they want to have even more customized temperatures because they know bodies are going to be jumping around and bouncing around. We can even customize it based on the string. So if it says Zumba, or basketball, or what have you, we can customize at that level too. So yeah, it's at the end of the day, what I tell people is it's we can make it do what's going on.
Do you hear that binging?
Oh yeah, I can hear the binging. Yeah. Bobby said it's Pam. So wait, there was another question. Does it calculate in setup and cleanup times for the event? So as part of setting this system up, the church can define if they want the start of the event to be the setup or the actual event start. So, setup is 30 minutes prior versus the event starting at 7 p.m. So they can say, which one of these fields we look at for the start time. So in this case, this church has chosen the setup start and the teardown end as the earliest time and the very latest time for the air conditioning and heating system. So yeah, so it's there's a lot of customizations that they can sort of put together on the system. So now, one of the other things too, just that's important to sort of to talk about is churches. Churches, as you guys well know, come in every size and flavor from tiny to mega, and the one thing is mega churches typically have rather high-end building control systems. So our system, by way of the thermostats, typically, and I say typically because there is no hard rule here, every system is different, is not compatible with those building control systems. Those are systems that cost tens and tens of thousands of dollars to set up and install. Our sort of sweet spot is churches below mega. I don't know if you guys have a sort of a classification for the different sizes, but it's the medium and small churches where we operate best. And the reason being is they have traditional thermostats on the wall, and that's what we're putting in place. So, to use our system, this is our software. It's integrated with CCB, and then they would need to install one of a small handful of thermostats that that our system can communicate with.